So I have a confession I need to make right out front here. I put the messages together and kind of the series and what we're working on and where we're going, and so we worked our way up to this point. Just finished up the what we walked through, and I said, hey, let's do 2 weeks on like a biblical picture of manhood. Right? That's a great idea. And then let's do 2 weeks on like godly decision making. And then I put it on the calendar, and we were in a meeting last week or 2 weeks ago, and Leif or someone said, are you sure you should kick off the manhood series on Mother's Day? And I was like, oh, no, so we're not. So you don't even know what happened. We switched it. You don't even know, okay? But, and if you might come from a background where on Father's Day, Mother's Day, there's kind of a message around that. We're just focusing in as we do week in and week out on what it looks like to inspire each other to follow Jesus, to deepen our faith and relationship with him, that we could love our neighbor, that we could reach the next generation. So that's what we're walking through today in this conversation that we're going to call for 2 weeks better. All right, so we'll jump in, we'll walk through it, you kind of see what we're going to be leaning into. But I realized about myself that every once in a while, there's a moment that fires up in my brain and like a switch flips, and suddenly, not always, I'm this highly motivated, I'm very organized, I'm vision-oriented. I become this person who's like going to win the day and carpe diem and seize it all. It happens. I make lists, I set goals, I have a plan, a really good plan, and I'm so ready to scale my life up and become an excellent version of myself. And then this thing, and most of you are like, it clearly didn't work, right? Here's the thing. It starts out really well. The first 2 weeks, I'm dialed in. You should see my tools. I get them all off I'm a sucker for buying things off Instagram. I've got all these great planning tools and goal tools, and I'm doing the things. I'm crossing things off the list, and I feel fantastic about myself. And then there's this problem that shows up. I call it tomorrow. Tomorrow happens, and I'm like, oh, man. And tomorrow's like, hey, buddy, I'm 100% not interested in your lists or your goals or your dreams or your better version of yourself. And I've noticed this thing. It's that the problem isn't that I don't want to change or improve or become a better husband or father or neighbor. That's not really what's at stake here. I want it genuinely. I think you do too. The problem is that I just can't sustain it. I actually know what needs to change. But somewhere between wanting it and then doing it consistently, I have this breakdown. So let's imagine there's 2 types of people, okay? I'm not going to have you vote on this, but in a moment you'll get to chat about it. There's the goal setters, okay? So goal setters, you maybe resonate. You don't even understand where it falls apart because you're so good at your goals. You say like, this is my day. You set goals. I'm going to close deals. I'm going to drop pounds. I'm going to add muscle. I'm going to scale up my network and my net worth. This is going to be phenomenal today. I'm going to go here and I'm going to do that. I'm just going to be awesome. I'm going to accomplish so much because I'm a goal setter. And some of you are like, yeah, you preach, brother, right? And then there's the non-goal setters. And you just went, ugh, the whole time. You're like, seriously? Do we have to? Or can we just be okay where like enjoy life, right? Let me ask you a question. We do a question on the morning. Are you a goal setter or a non-goal setter? I know there's more categories, but put yourself in those 2 buckets, okay? You get turned to your neighbor. A lot of you, like you're pretty tight in here this morning, so just grab someone, chat with them, and say, yeah, am I a goal setter or a non-goal setter? You get 1 minute, and then we'll be back. Are you guys okay in the sun? You're good. If you need to move to a shadier area, it is right in front, but you're good with it? Like a ship that's tossed and driven, guided by an angry sea. When the storms of life are raging and the fury falls on me, and I look and wonder why. Oh, great fortune seem to pass me by. And I say, so let's just do a quick straw poll. Goal setters. Can you get your hands up real quick? Who's our goal setters? All right, like I say, very motivated group of the room right here. Non-goal setters. All right. Stay comfortable where you are. Okay, no judgment going out to you right now. Here's the thing. that I think both groups all the hands went up have in common. At some point, maybe it's right now, maybe it was a time in your past. There was a time when you wanted something in your life to be different. You identified it. You put it down. You thought it and you had it. And maybe it was financial and you looked at your savings or your credit card statement and you thought, I just can't keep going this way, or I need to change where this is heading. And maybe it was relational. And it was a friendship that just slowly went cold and you started to neglect it, or you felt like you were on the end of it being neglected. Maybe it's a marriage that you just, I don't know. You said, I mean, I've been married a while. I love marriage, but it is work. And it is an invitation every day to give grace and mercy and start over and love that person. Like maybe there was a time in your marriage where you just kind of settled into something that felt more like logistics, who to drop off and pick up and what to pay and where to go, than actually nurturing and having a co-mission together as a couple to love and serve God. Maybe it's your career. You have a goal and you see it. You know what it is. I would hope that each of you has a version of a spiritual better, a sense that you and God could be closer. But you're not quite sure how there was this distance or even how to close it, or if you want to close it, right? But I think this is true about us. We have these categories and we have these desires to be better. So whatever your answer is, I want to say that I think we share the same experience in we have a desire for change in our lives. And then we start. And for some of us, actually for all of us, probably at some point, it falls apart. And not because you don't care. It's not a matter of like desire, right? It's because life is complicated and has plans for you that you didn't always account for in your plans for yourself. And so what we find is that this idea of being perfect is impossible. It just is. But better is possible. And that's 2 weeks. I just want to talk about what better is possible could look like. I remember my daughter went to this, we lived in the Bay Area, and she went to a school that was all girls, and the pressure was so immense to be awesome. It was their vision for like 100 years was women learning, women leading. That's a lot for like a 12-year-old, okay? But that was her, and then you take like Jim Collins. Some of you studied Jim Collins. The good is the enemy of great. Does anyone have like tattooed on your back or something like that? Good is the enemy of great. This is what Jim Collins says. Good is the enemy of great. And that is one of the key reasons why we have so little that becomes great. And maybe some of you are like, yeah, that's what I want to hear. And then one year, they got the girls, it was her junior year, and all the girls gathered for their beginning of the year school ceremony. And the head of school got up and they said, this whole good is the enemy of great. We've got to stop this. They said, because it's also true that great is the enemy of many goods. Oh, that's a reframe I want to spend some time talking through. Because when perfect is the goal, anything less than perfect feels like failure. Whether it's your kids, it's your relationships, it's the vision for your life or where you live, the neighborhood you're in, the house you own. And then failure, if you're like me, it's a kind of a butt kicker. And you just want to give up. Who likes failure? Who's like, I eat failure for breakfast, you know? If you say that, find a new slogan, okay? And so what if better than before is the human way to live? Better than before. Matthew chapter 6, Jesus is teaching in the Sermon on the Mount, and he gives this vision of life, of the good life. He gives this vision of how we should interact and love and serve and view religion and that practice, and how we should look at others, and how our interior life, what's inside, should match our exterior practice. And so I want to look at these words of Jesus. They're going to be very familiar for some of you. Maybe for some of you so familiar that they just go right over, like, yeah. But so let's imagine that this is the first time we're all hearing this, okay? But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. And then all these things will be given to you as well. The things that Jesus is talking about is the stuff of life, the security of food and safety, the worry about whether or not you're going to be good tomorrow or better tomorrow than you were today. In the case of his audience, are you going to just be okay tomorrow, right? And Jesus looks at them and says, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you. And he's talking to a crowd of people who are worried. They're worried about money. Are you worried about money? I think it's probably fair to say many of you are. They're worried about food. Now, we may not have. Some in this room do, and I know that can be really challenging. Pulling into Surprise Valley, coming into church at Eastwood and being like, nobody knows like the food scarcity challenge I live in today, but I'm sitting in this church, and like that could be your reality. Those basic, like the very bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, those basic requirements for life, you're concerned about those. I grew up in that type of environment. And you're worried about what's going to happen. Let's just do this real quick. I do want to do one more hand raise. That's all I'll do this morning. Raise your hand if you worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. All right, so it's enough of us. There's enough of us, and then a bunch of people in denial. So it's a good group of people, right? Jesus says, he offers this simple trade. He goes, don't worry about all that. Seek first the kingdom, his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you. Seek God first, and everything will be better. Okay, so I have a question though. How? Like, how do you seek God's kingdom? What does it actually look like in practice? Because if I'm a pastor, right? I've been following Jesus for 3 decades. And if I'm being honest, I think when I say seek first the kingdom, it sounds a lot like a slogan, a spiritual slogan that you might say, but you're not sure what it means. I go like, okay, yes, seek first the kingdom. At church, yes. But what about on Tuesday? I've been thinking through this. There's 2,000 years of Christian history to support us and encourage us. And there's our own lives we live. And some of you may not be followers of Jesus. You might have more questions. You're here. We love that. We value that. And we want to walk through that with you. But I'd simply say this. Seeking first the kingdom is not a one-time decision. It is a daily orientation. That's what I want to get at in week 1 of this 2-week conversation better, is it's all about our daily orientation. It's a posture that we return to over and over at the beginning of the day, in the middle of the day, at the end of the day, in a hard moment when our strength runs out. And the word seek, for the Bible nerds in the room, you know it's an active word. It doesn't mean like go find it, put it in your pocket, you've got it. It doesn't mean that. It means keep seeking and seeking and seeking and seeking. And seeking. Make it the consistent direction of your orientation. That's what I mean, the consistent direction of your life. So let's call this the consistency effect. Didn't come up with this, but, right? Small things done consistently over time lead to big things. The habit stackers out there understand this framework, right? It's the whole idea. Spiritually, if we could put this in a framework of following Jesus, we've been in this long conversation as a church called Practicing the Way, partnering with a lot of churches having this conversation about what it looks like to practically follow Jesus in our day-to-day habits and practices. We've talked about prayer and Sabbath and solitude, and there's many more. We talk about Scripture and the practice of witness, and we talked about generosity. Like these are the things, the small things done consistently over time. We're going to continue down this journey in this conversation. It's that practical. It's not just imaginary small things. It's small things like daily prayer. It's small things like a regular habit of reading Scripture. It's small things like the daily practice of giving thanks. It's small things like shutting off and shutting down and being silent. It's small things like stopping your doing for a little bit and Sabbathing and trusting that God is in control and you aren't. That one's not small as it sounds, but small things like being in community. Sharing your story with others, learning the story of others, being honest about where you're at or not at in your faith. But I think then the flip side is also true. Small negative things done consistently over time lead to big negative things. The law is true. I don't think anyone wakes up and decides to blow their finances. That's a train that just gets rolling over years. And eventually it's out of control. I don't think we wake up and go, I just want to struggle to have high value friendships that I can count on. Small stacking repeatedly of habits and practices leads to a place where you find yourself searching and struggling to be in community where you're known and you're cared for, and you can do the same. Small things consistently over time, big results, right? So the idea is this: commitment. I want to change. In the case of our church community, I want to follow Jesus. I'm trying to figure out what that's my commitment. I want to follow Jesus, right? That will get you to tomorrow. But consistency, that's going to be where you actually see over time the transformation takes place. Because commitment is a decision. And it's an important decision. For some of you, that's the decision you need to make. You have yet to commit that decision to align your life with the way of Christ. And if that's not your path, you have yet to commit that decision to take that next step to being a healthier person, which I am so certain. I trust the scriptures, I trust the experience of my own life and so many stories in this room, that there is a time when that growth and being whole and healthy leads you to aligning your life in the way of Christ. So I want to sit with something real quick. I want to ask you something. You're not going to turn and share it, but you're going to have to hold it in your hands for the rest of the message. Is there an area in your life where you have been losing momentum or you've lost momentum? Financial, relational, physical, career, spiritual. You can have another bucket, but those are some of the meta categories that came to mind for me. Is there an area in your life where you have been losing momentum or you've lost it? And just choose one area. I know some of you might go, yes, 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 yes. Like, that's not what I'm asking. Just, is there one? A place where it feels like you've been moving backward or standing still, but everything within you knows you want to move forward. Financial, relational, physical, vocation or career, spiritual. Because I think if you can name it, you're all like, change management, right? What's the first thing you have to do? Define reality. What needs to change? So if you can name the area, you're already closer than you think. But naming it also surfaces something that we have to deal with is, what am I going to do about it? Like, it's great to say, I want to be closer to God, and it can feel so discouraging to never feel closer to God spiritually. It can be great to say, I want to get healthy. I've shared, you've been at this church long enough, you've seen my shape change over the last 6 years. That was not like, that was a commitment, but also like a practice, a repeated practice over time. And there was a lot of frustration around naming it and doing nothing about it. Yeah? If you're not careful, it can start to feel like the issue isn't the area, that you're the issue. You can't change. There's not a better option for you available. It's just not on the table, right? And so I want to introduce you to like one of the big names in the Bible who talked about this type of challenge. Most of you are probably familiar with the Apostle Paul. He wrote a lot of the New Testament letters to the churches, Romans, Galatians. We dip into these a lot, right? Paul was not a follower of Jesus. He was opposed to the work of the early church. He was against it. He persecuted it. He oversaw the death of one of the first public deaths of a Christian. And then Paul eventually was transformed himself. He had a spiritual encounter with Jesus. And he wrote about it. And he went and he started churches. And so if you think about it, it's kind of a weird dynamic. But today in Boise, Idaho, Eastwind Community Church and Eagle Christian Church across the street, and Hill City Southeast happening down at Dallas Harris right now. That's just our little neck of the woods, right? All of us trace back to Paul getting on a boat and going around the Mediterranean and telling people about Jesus. And so this is how he writes about it. This is a guy who transformed an entire generation in the name of Jesus. He describes himself, first of all, so you're aware, as the chief of all sinners. So if the religious talk, sin's bad. There's never a time when we say we're going to talk about sin and everyone's like, this is going to be uplifting, right? And so sin just falls in the bad category. And Paul says, this is me, I'm the chief of this. That's his assessment. He says, I'm number one, you're number two. I'm number one. And then he talks about this challenge he has. He says, I keep wanting to change. I keep wanting to be better, but I got this, like, he calls it a thorn in his side. Are you familiar with that language? If everyone have a thorn in their side? Or is the person next to you? You're like, I do, right now. Right here, right? The thorn in his side, right? And he talks through, he's like, I want this to go away, and it won't. And we don't know. Historically, scholastically, we don't know what the thorn is, okay? Nobody knows. There's a lot of people guessing because it's curious, right? But listen to what he says. He says, I asked God to take it away. I said, God, I need you to make me better. I'm the chief of sinners. Can you work with me here? And God says to him, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Now, we could fly right back by that sentence and nod our heads and go, yeah. That is not what most people believe. That your power, the strength that you're going to find in your life is going to come from your weakness. I know that some of you who have walked faithfully and challengingly through sobriety communities would say, oh, that's how I start every day. But it's actually how all of us start every day. We're just not always aware of it. He said, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That's why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships. And he starts to go to some external things because he had quite a few. In persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Weakness and strength, and the same, like they're like, wait, so my weakness is my strength. My letting go is my power. And Paul says, this is the discovery that changed everything for him. I'm going to do something I shouldn't do. I'm going to give you my opinion about what the thorn in his flesh was. All right, this isn't even part of the message. It's not in your message notes, but you're all looking at me listening, so I'm going to share it with you, okay? Paul oversaw the destruction of people's homes. These people had names, cousins, grandparents, family members. And then he became one of them. How guilty do you think he would be when he sat face to face with the very people whose grandpa he dragged off and threw in prison and never seen again? With the best friends of Stephen, who Paul oversaw his public death in the middle of the street. This, by the way, is not in the Bible. I shouldn't even share this, okay? But I was fascinated with this. I think, because it aligns with his teaching about the grace of God and the love of enemies, that Paul would sit at the dinner table, across the table, and look in the eyes of someone whose life he had destroyed, and he would receive love. And in the middle of the night, he would sweat and have nightmares about all he had done, and he would wish it would go away. But what does it ever? When you do that, and he said, God, please just take it away. And God's like, no, Paul, my grace is sufficient for you. You were a murderer. I'm not taking that off the table. But now you're family with those you murdered. I don't know. Take it for what it's worth, okay? That's always been my take on it. I should not have even shared that. But let's get back into what's happening here. But so he says, my grace is sufficient for you. How do we walk this out? I'm just going to give you 3 steps then. This is our better process through a spiritual lens, okay? The first is this: admit your weakness. When I'm weak, then I'm strong. Paul says, I'll boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses. I'm not going to hide them. I'm not going to minimize them. I'm going to say, here's the thing I'm not strong in. I'm going to bring it right out in the open, which is the opposite of what I like to do. I like to hide my weaknesses and then overcompensate for them. Act like it's not there. Work twice as hard and prevent anyone from seeing it, right? But Paul's discovered, and he gives this in Scripture through the power of the Spirit, that when we hide our weakness, it's almost like we shut off the valve of where God's going to access and provide something that we need. Admitting your weakness isn't defeat. Many of you know this. It's just the first step towards moving towards wholeness. So step 2 is then ask for help. My grace is sufficient for you. That's what God said. Paul had to ask, God, please help me in my weakness. Paul, I'm not going to help you the way you thought, but my grace is sufficient for you. So he brings it before God. He says, I've got this thorn. I've got this struggle. I need you, right? And as a follower of Jesus, it can get a little like admitting the same struggle over and over. Anyone else go through this? And you're like, oh, God must be so tired of me right now. I mean, all he did for me, and I can't even fix this one thing. It's a really interesting challenge we have. But I think that thinking is actually backwards. Because it takes out the sufficiency of God's grace to be all that you need. Not your strategies and your consistency and your work and your efforts. Bring it before God and say the actual thing. And then create space for him to say to you, guess what? I already knew my love for you is unchanging, and I'm with you. Step 3, receive God's strength. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so Christ's power may rest on me. Now, I know I've given you 3 steps that are ambiguously spiritual, and what are you supposed to really do with them? But take them, really. So admit your weakness. Ask for help. And believe, receive his strength. I think this is the step we skip the most. We admit the weakness once or twice or 100 times. We ask for help. We go in and we do that. And then we go back to, I say, this is what I do. I say, God, I need you. Please help me. And then I walk away and I do Carlos's thing like he's always done. And I think I've done it. I've done it like I merged me and God, and it's this great like yin-yang amalgamation. And if I did the stuff, I said it to him, and now I don't. Like, what if we linger in that space and I say, God, I want to receive your strength. I mean, look at his words. He says, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. And if you look at the thread of what he's saying, he delights in them because they draw him closer to Jesus, who is the source of his life. And if you were to take the words of Jesus, it's the Jesus who said, remain in me, and you can do all things. Apart from me, you can't. For I am the vine and you are the branches. That's a teaching of Jesus we just have to wrestle with. So it's this journey of like committed, yes, and then consistent. A daily practice of admitting our weakness, asking for help, and then receiving the strength of God. So go back to the thing you identified. Like what was I gave you 5 lists: financial, relational, vocational. And maybe you grabbed something. Maybe you did go, yes, this is the thing for me. It's I got to get out of this job. Or, it's been in this dating relationship a long time and we don't know what our next step is. And I feel like I don't know how to have that conversation. Maybe there's a thing, right? You got your thing. What was it? Now let's shift it and not see it as like a discipline problem that you just have to get out and work harder at, or a motivation problem or a willpower problem. That's probably partly true, but this is also true. It's an area of weakness. And according to the scriptures, weakness is not a problem to be ashamed of. It's actually an invitation to stop trying to fix it on your own strength, because your strength will run out. At least mine does. And then usually I start blaming and accusing the world around me for the problem that I can't seem to work my way through. So practically, I want to give you a very short prayer. And do with it what you would like. But I think it could look something like this. Lord, I need you. Please give me your strength for today. Lord, I need you. I need you here. This is the area. I'm weak. Can you be with me? And then just do that prayer. Like, start every morning. Maybe for you the step is, I'm going to do that every morning for the next 2 weeks, 14 days. I'm going to just make that a habit of what I do. Or I can't do, for me I have to do things so many times because my mind is like, right? So I have to do like morning, noon, night, lunch, mid-afternoon. But it's not that many words. It's, Lord, I need you. Please give me your strength for today. I can just stop real quick, close my eyes, and say, Lord, I need you. Please give me your strength for today. Because small things done consistently over time lead to big things. And I think when it comes to like being with Jesus and being like Jesus, one of the myths we fall into is we got to make a big move. And then that will do the thing. Or it's small things done consistently over time. The last thing I just want to say is this then. Don't try to do it alone. I think it's the worst way to do anything. We have many of you are in communities. You're in life group communities here. They're about to go on break, so it's kind of a weird time for me to say, don't try to do it alone. But what I mean is, like, if you came here with somebody, bring them in. If you have a trusted friend or people you're in community with, don't try to do it alone. In your life group community, if there's someone you've connected with, or ours, we put text prayer needs in our church center app and send them out. And so what you could do is just put it in there and send it out. Like, hey, listen to the message. Say, I don't want to do this alone. I'm asking for God's strength in this because I'm weak. I don't know what I'm doing right now. This is how you're sending the message. I don't know what device you have in your hands. But, all right. Okay. Don't do it alone. It's not a solo. Actually, nothing in life is good as a solo pursuit repeatedly. Some things need to be solo in a time and a space. Just don't do it alone. One of the ways God continually and faithfully strengthens people is through other people. And so this is kind of what I know. I'm confident that tomorrow can be better than today, as long as I let go of perfect, and not because of my willpower, not because I got a better planner or a better system or joined a better cohort or master learning community. Or it can be better than today because I have access to a God who has a strength I do not have. So better tomorrow is not about trying harder. What I think, and this is what Paul experienced, as it comes to seeking first the kingdom of God and his righteousness and all these things being added to you, is that it's about admitting where you're weak and letting God's strength fill the gap. So before we sing together, I'm going to take a moment and just put that prayer back up. It's that one sentence, right? Lord, I need you. Please give me your strength for today. And just give you a couple minutes in the crowded room to just sit and reflect before you have to move on and think about picking up your kids or getting out to your Sunday morning or things. Just for a moment here. And then the band will come up and we'll sing a song together.
Eyes wide, late night, windows still open. There's a shadow at my back saying everything's broken. So I pointed to a star saying that's where I'm going. Second to the right, then straight to morning. Praying in the dark, please, if you got a moment. There's a shadow in my mind, says you're never gonna notice that I've been dying inside, I've been trying